After the box office success the first game brought to Capcom in 2001, they went back to the drawing board again and 2 years later gave us Devil May Cry 2, a sequel that for us Devil May Cry fans, yeah, we considered it to be a cardinal sin. And for me, this was a game that I was uniquely interested in playing ever since I heard about its legacy of being considered a crime against humanity. Especially since I loved the first game a lot despite the issues it presented, so I was doubly intrigued by what makes this game the game that it is. And to do that, we gotta go all the way back to the early 2000s since this was a unique era for Capcom, and by that I mean the one where they did not take themselves all that seriously. I've stressed before with the Zero games that in the handheld setting they were creating relatively good titles like the Mega Man Zero and Battle Network series, but for some reason on the PS2 they just weren't trying that hard. Case in point, Mega Man X7 released around that same year and is also a huge contender for the worst Capcom game of all time because of how interested and poorly designed it ended up being. I'm not going to say much about all this kind of stuff because I already dedicated an entire video to Mega Man X7, but the point still stands in that Capcom's hearts were not in the right place during this time. The same sentiments were expressed with Devil May Cry 2, both with a rather rushed development cycle and a release window of January 2003. And what? January 2003? Who the hell releases a game in January? Oh. What's worse is that this game wasn't even done by the same people who made the first game and was greenlit without them even knowing, which, damn, okay. Like, imagine creating the first game and then be told, yeah, you're not making the sequel, buddy, and give it to the ones who ended up making the arcade games like Capcom vs SNK 2. Which, yeah, that actually happened. Devil May Cry 2 was under the supervision of Capcom Studio 1, who primarily worked on arcade games at the time, and I guess because Capcom was hell-bent on making fat stacks during this era, they gave it to the one studio that didn't even know what a Dante or a Devil was. And to give to the folks who worked on the arcade games was one thing because during this turn of the millennium, the home console was all the buzz, and so Capcom really wanted their studios to work on as many games as possible as they saw a PlayStation with a number 2 stamp next to it would drive them the big bucks. But to not consult the people who gave you the damn franchise in the first place was something else entirely, and I still scratch my head whenever I'm reminded about this. Seriously, there was no communication between Kamiya and Team Little Devil regarding Devil May Cry 2 in terms of how to proceed with the sequel, and you see that as soon as you boot up the game and see Dante not acting like Dante. He has no cocky demeanor, no smirks or quirky comebacks, and even when he does, it's just so low battery. Bro aura farms and says absolutely nothing the whole game, and for some bizarre reason, he even has a coin to toss like he's Harvey Dent. It's later revealed that it was actually a one-sided coin, so he was gonna help out anyways, but Dante, stop trying to be different here, man. We got demons to slay, damn it! The game's entire development cycle was weird, and Capcom really didn't care at the time. Ideas were scrapped, manpower was thin out across the board because so many games were being made, and at one point, it was almost abandoned altogether because of 9/11. Yeah, that was an actual thing that happened. It was such an intense development cycle that halfway through development, the original director just quit, and Capcom gave the keys to Hideki Itsuno rival schools to salvage anything that would work for a proper sequel, only giving the man 6 months to do it. And I don't know how he did it, but he managed to barely deliver the game on time, resulting in what is undoubtedly the worst Devil May Cry game of all time and one of the worst Capcom games of all time. I'm not exaggerating here, this was such a bad product in both quality and appeal that Itsuno wanted to make amends with the franchise by jumping to the reins for the third game, if there was ever gonna be one, and bring a game that you know he could feel proud of. And it amazes me that despite DMC2 being utter ass at the end of the day, it still managed to sell well enough for Capcom to say, hey yeah, you know what, let's greenlit that third game. But that's enough about Devil May Cry 3 because Devil May Cry 2 is our topic for today, and oof, I really didn't want her to come back to this one. Much like my experience with Devil May Cry 1, I experienced DMC2 the same way, and looking back at my time with it, I started questioning a lot of my life decisions. I really don't remember anything about this game, and even looking back at my old stream VODs when I first played it back in 2020, it didn't help to jog my memory either. It was such an experience that it honestly felt like the Men in Black raided my house and wiped my memory of it. And fuck, to get the ball rolling here, we might as well talk about the plot real quick because yeah, there's a plot and it's something. The son of Sparta returns for more action, this time on the island of Vale de Marlias. The locals are having a rough time with this asshole named Arius, who has been using demon power to establish an international business ventures. Basically, we're dealing with Amazon, folks, and me saying that already made me lose potential sponsors. I just know it. Dante, being the man that he is, accepts the request of their Elder Matier, and from there, the game goes along with that premise, but talk about a snooze fest. It's the same plot as the first game, but with different characters, and it's so insignificant that by DMC onwards, they retcon this Dante and don't even mention the events of this game at all. And on the subject of Dante here, fuck, he pisses me off. With a badass design and a sexy ass Giga Chat face, I hate how low energy he is in this game. No dialogue, no quips, no wise ass personality, absolutely nothing. He plays it way too straight, and whenever he talks, it's not the same because it's so edgelord coded.
Do you have to ask? Your lucky streak continues, Granny. King? Yeah. Here's your crown.
In fact, I think that's what they were going with here. An edgelord demon hunter you see straight out of something like City of Bones. Good lord, Dante just wasn't him the whole time. And to go back on my comment about this game being retcon, DMC2 supposedly takes place during a time where Dante was depressed after realizing he killed his brother back in DMC1. That was what the word on the street was after playing this the first time, but again, it's insignificant enough that the events of this game aren't mentioned moving forward. Which sucks because we were introduced to Lucia here, and talk about character potential. I love her design for one, and a part of me thought she was gonna play some big role in this game because she's also a playable character like Dante, and so I decided to play through her own campaign, only to then go,
That's it?
no story is involved with her other than we learned that she was a demon created by Arius, and that's not even explained in her own campaign, by the way. That was all through Dante's side of things, so why even have her as a playable character if you're gonna throw the most significant thing about her somewhere else? God, this game's plot just sort of happened, and while you can argue that's not the main thing with these types of games, I did say that back in Devil May Cry 1, but here things happen for no reason other than just cuz. I mean, we fight a building with a demon head on it with zero explanation why, for fuck's sakes. I think that about covers what DMC2 is in a nutshell. And Lucia's mom, Matier, I think that's what she's supposed to be. She tells Dante that after they beat Arius, she was going to tell them something about Sparta, but that was never brought up. Sure, Dante remarks in the end saying that he doesn't really care about his old man, but still, why build something up like that only for it to go absolutely nowhere? And Arius, my god, what a nothing burger of a villain. No proper motives, no present whatsoever. This dude didn't hit the same as Mundus, where you felt that guy had an influence on the other demons chasing Dante down, but Arius here just shows up, snaps his fingers, and fucks off for the rest of the game until you shoot him point blank. Hell, when I first played this all these years back and I was going through his boss and seeing him all cocky and shit, I thought there was more with this guy, but no, that also never happened. Zero gratification from beating his ass and zero satisfaction knowing that Dante saved the day as he rides off through hell on a motorcycle, to which I'm still figuring out how he got one in the first place. Hell, I didn't even mention Fire Taboo here. Like, what was his name? The Despair Embodied? What? Where did you even come from? You know what? It doesn't matter because it only showed up for Dante to put a cap on its ass too, with zero explanation why it's even a thing, though I did appreciate the good whipping you gave me. I said what I said. But coming back to this, I know why I didn't remember much the first time, because there was nothing in the plot that got me invested the whole way through. And with nothing of interest, I breezed through the game because what do I need to stop myself from looking at the cutscenes other than to have footage for B-roll making this YouTube video? Both campaigns I ended up finishing in under 3 hours each, less than the time it took for me to beat the first game, and I didn't even seem to care about what they wanted to do here. And if you beat any campaign on hard mode, you even get to unlock Trish, which also begs the question, where was Trish during all of this? Like on some sabbatical? What the hell happened to the whole Wii shit back in the ending of DMC1? Funny enough, even if I say all this kind of stuff, I don't actually hate the game. Yeah. I know I said I didn't care for the story and all that, but generally speaking, as a game, it was okay. I think. First things first, we're back on the PS2 and presentation seems good enough, though to be fair, much like Devil May Cry 1, I am playing the HD collection for these games on Steam. Visually speaking, I gotta give credit to DMC2 because it looks fine, but it still suffers from the same brown ass stained color palette that the first game had on top of the fixed camera angles. It does have some cool cutscenes and FMVs here and there, but that's about as much of a cool factor as Dante and Lucia wearing clothes from the indie company Diesel. Yeah, you know the one, and I mean, Dante, look man, I personally like the fit, but was this even needed? I don't know. Plus, I think Lucia rocks it better in my opinion. Like, god damn, girl. And Capcom, Why the hell did you keep the fixed camera angles here? I don't get it, and neither does Dante, as he's busy shooting down enemies while his neck is cracked at 180 degrees because he moved 2 inches. The whole game is like this, and I think this was done to keep a similar identity going based off of the first game, but I also think they wanted to cheapen out in some areas. Which wouldn't fucking surprise me since this game was released the same year as Mega Man X7. Some of the locales are pretty, mainly the ruins, but that's because there's more lighting in there compared to the city and village portions, and man, when you're going through those areas, it gets so boring. The factory missions bored me the fuck out, and it had me thinking of Prison Island from Sonic Adventure 2 of all games, mainly because of this elevator segment where Dante is shooting down these lava butterflies. All this moment had me thinking of Eggman or Tails ass blasting their lock-on, and that wasn't fun. And it doesn't help that not only are the areas humongous, almost double the size of the cramped rooms back in the first game, but goddamn is Dante so slow. This is his entire running speed, folks, and for a dude who's on the clock to stop a demonic threat, he sure got enough time on his hands because this is about as fast as he's getting unless you use double trigger, since it gives Lucy and Dante a faster running speed by default. I did this while escaping through the factory as it was exploding, and I gotta tell you, it was enjoyable seeing Dante having the demonic zoomies. Or if you don't want to do all that, then go ahead and spam the new dodge roll mechanic that they have and look like a fool on the streets, but guess what? That beats walking on molasses now, does it? I may look like an asshole having Dante doing cartwheels on the highways, but to me it looks like he's having the time of his life. Whee! And on the topic of the new dodge roll, if you ever use it next to a wall or something, you're gonna have Dante and Lucia do Matrix level shit that I have no idea why it's even there. It looks cool, it certainly makes things different, but I never pull it off during combat because it feels unnecessary to do so. If it were a mechanic done in a different game, I'd vibe with it more. Maybe it was like in a platformer or something that, fuck me, wasn't this game, because again, the overworlds are just so damn large. I mean, as someone who's played Devil May Cry before, and by extension any other hack and slash games that are similar, this isn't really an issue for me personally, but DMC2 isn't like most games. With the distance between Dante and his enemies being so far apart, maintaining a high rank ends up being a chore, and what will end up happening is you'll slash through enemies for a bit, and then to keep the momentum going, switch to guns and slowly approach them before continuing with the sword, and this happened to me almost constantly. It becomes second nature to lock on a target and whip out your piece like it's your Second Amendment right, but if you're not willing to exercise that fully, then you can just dodge roll to their location and keep slicing and dicing. And you know what? There's fun to be had in doing that. But not here, because it's not quick and snappy, and for most of the time, as I'm going through the game's motions, I've slowly remembered just how easy this game actually is. There's no challenge to be had here, and it's not because it's made to be easy. No. It's because the game just somehow doesn't feel complete. A perfectly good example of this is that there's a mission where Dante and Lucia have to activate the gate to the underworld, and they gotta trigger a timed event where you have to survive an onslaught of enemies for like 2 minutes or so, and you have to do it twice for some reason. Like, was one time not enough? And a lot of the time, I'm fighting enemies with my basic combos and guns, and the ones that are in the backgrounds are just standing there doing absolutely nothing, not to mention again that they're so far apart. And with these guys like the infested tanks in the city, you can stand right in front of them and look straight dead in their eyes, and they can't do diddly dick because they're not programmed to attack at close range. So you can get some free shots in an S rank with these guys unless you're away from them, where they just shoot Dante point blank the second you're in frame. Ow, fuck! There's even this infested chopper bit where you don't even have to shoot at it. You can bypass it by going through this whole platforming segment to then fight the damn chopper as a proper boss fight, and it's so ridiculous to the point where I just laughed my ass off. It even chases you inside a building, guys. How can I not poke fun at something like that that might as well be a scene from an action parody movie you rented out of Blockbuster? It's absolutely brain dead that there are moments where I ended up dying in this game, not because it was hard, but because I just didn't care, mainly in boss fights. All I did was spam the same move and proceeded to die out of sheer boredom because the audacity of me playing this game right was not in the heart of the cards. Okay, well, except maybe there's one boss near the end of Dante's and Lucia's run where there's these 3 floating heads that reminded me of Crash Bandicoot, and I ended up summoning Majin Devil Trigger near the end of it to beat it, which is this super cool Devil Trigger that requires some extreme conditions to activate, like Dante having low health and then activating Devil Trigger, but the game's coding didn't register the victory, so I actually felt annoyed that I died here, but that was more so because I had to deal with the same repetitive shit again just to go back to this boss. and it didn't even affect my total rank either. Hell, I ended up with most Bs in this game's report card, and in a game where it's a slugfest to kill even the basic enemies, I again didn't even care. And to go back to Dante's movements for a second, besides the slow running speed and the dodge roll, you can also double jump by default now, making traversal easier. It's more for that vertical platforming like last time, but hey, I didn't mind it, so I guess DMC2 did something right finally. No, wait, scratch that, because once you unlock the ability to fly with double trigger, you can skip all platforming challenges with a tap of a button. Deadass, you can skip 90% of all platforming by spamming fly with a full bar of double trigger, which I'm genuinely gagged at the idea of making this a thing in the first place. Holy shit, they did not bother with the verticality here, because even in combat, Dante doesn't have proper aerial combos unless he's in double trigger, and in some moments where it's required, like with this mini boss with the Sagrasso heads and the diamonds, it's the frickin' pits, man. Lucia and Dante also have an auto lock on that you can't toggle, and while it's not terrible, it's mildly inconvenient when you're trying to fight one enemy and it snaps Dante to another one simply because of proximity chat or something. Sometimes it even locks on enemies off screen, so it ends up being a guessing game where you need to shoot and ask questions later, and good lord, you know what, this was definitely something to experience again, I gotta tell you. And again, while it's not that big of a deal, it's mostly aggravating when you want to, I don't know, for example, do some platforming or try to get this light switch to turn on, but these stupid ass demon birds won't let you do it. Let me turn on this shit, damn it! Or deal with this asshole of a boss where you're trying to shoot its head, but it keeps locking onto its tentacles. And I got, look man, go away, I don't swing that way, and whatever the hell your name was again, Jorbalurk? Is that how it's even pronounced? In fact, now that I think about it, a lot of these enemies' names sound fake as hell, and I wonder what the creative team were doing naming these guys the way that they are. And then I'm going through the game's motions again, and muscle memory be damned, because I keep hitting the same basic combos over and over again, and I'm even timing them like before to see if there's anything different, but nope. It's the same 4-hit combos with some variations that do happen, and I'm wondering, how the hell did I pull that off? And it wasn't until I immediately remembered that in order to do different combos, you need to tilt the analog stick forward. The game does not tell you this, manual or otherwise, and it doesn't matter which weapon you use, by the way. Dante is still doing the same shit no matter if you're feeling rebellious or having a vendetta, and I never understood this on my first playthrough all those years back until I learned about the fact that this game, again, was developed by people who made arcade fighting games. And if you're not familiar with fighting games, some inputs require tilting the joystick to make them land, and I guess for Devil May Cry 2, they wanted to mimic that same feeling here, which, to give them some credit, I low-key vibe with it. It's different enough to make sure you're having some extra input into the swordplay, and in the case of Lucia, it more than makes up for some added kick animations she makes, or Dante adding extra swings in his attacks. But it doesn't make it interesting enough to feel satisfied, because you might as well just pull the same 4 hits over and over again, because it makes things go by quicker, and especially in Lucia's case, where by default, she's faster than Dante in combat. And honestly, why bother learning this extra step anyways when at the end of the day, you can just resort to double trigger and guns, because that's really the whole game. Fuck the sword play, you're going to be shooting demons with Ebony and Ivory most of the time because it's the easiest way to stagger them. I'm legit holding the square button down, and look at Dante send these demons up in the air like he just doesn't care, because it's how this game's gunplay is. Sometimes Dante will shoot in a different direction, but I don't know how I managed to pull that off whenever it happened, but hey, it looks cool. Not as cool as just spamming gun and double trigger, because holy crap, he rapid fires like a submachine gun. Enemies or bosses, it doesn't fucking matter, because it's like if air raid from the first game was on crack and shreds through enemies' health like it's tissue paper. I'm dead serious. Look at me use guns and swords on this one boss before I turn the double trigger switch on, and he's gone in seconds and turned into Swiss cheese. And the damage output that double trigger does with melee weapons is insane. Nothing is safe when you're throwing hands either as Lucia or Dante, because their health bars goes down as quickly as my credit score. It's broken as hell, and if you know how to use the right combos, you're putting everything to bed basically. This was legit all I did in boss fights because they just give you this tool in the starting minutes of the game so I can not expect me to abuse it. But the moment you start using guns, that's when you're growing complacent with them. And I did my best to make the gameplay stand out with various weapons here and there, but I mean, you can straight up beat the whole game with guns. It becomes a drug addiction because it staggers enemies faster, it helps build meter for Devil Trigger, and the raw power alone with some of them, like the shotgun and the missile launcher, to even Lucia's default throwing knives, it's all you really need in Devil May Cry 2. And by the way, that's not a compliment here, that's just a complete detriment to this game, where the whole goal really is to go random bullshit go in order to land the most hits to get a good rank going. Not in this game, and I have to be real with you guys, does it even matter? With a lack of awareness from enemies and just cheesing the game with your piece, is getting that S rank at the top of the screen even worth it? Because it's not. The game also has this amulet mechanic that, as far as I'm aware, it's only been a thing here, as I believe has never been brought back in future games. And a part of me wish it did because it looked like it had potential for diverse gameplay. What the amulet does is give Double Trigger added perks like the flying ability from earlier, faster mobility and healing, or change the elemental flavor of your attacks. Now, do these things make any difference in combat whatsoever? Nope. Legit, you can keep one element for the entire game, upgrade all your weapons, and just stick with it until the credits roll because they just didn't bother to do anything with it. When you beat both campaigns too, you have access to the infamous Bloody Palace mode where it's nothing but going through levels of enemies you've already beaten to get more red orbs, I guess. I tried a little of it as both Dante and Lucia, and the result was as I expected, and man, it was funny to me how they give you 3 portal options and you can bounce around the rooms by going up 10 floors or 100 floors with no difficulty added. It's the same BS you've done for the last 5 hours, good luck, have fun. And like I mentioned earlier, when you beat hard mode on any campaign, you also unlock Trish as a playable character, and I hate to be that guy, but was this even worth it too? Sure, she's a cool addition and all that, easily the best character out of this entire roster to be frank, because she uses Dante's moveset back from DMC1 and had a lot of fun coming back to something that I was familiar with. It was boss as hell to see her wield the Sparta, since I do remember associating that sword with her based off of MVC3 alone, and her double trigger here is busted and goofy. It's funny seeing her fly in the air with a Spider-Man-like pose while glowing yellow shooting down orbs in the bunch. But as an unlockable in hard mode, where there's no difference in difficulty other than, I don't know, maybe different enemy attack animations here and there, this was not a reward I felt proud of getting despite how cool she ended up being. And you know what happened to me once I saw the game tell me I unlocked Trish? I felt immediate disappointment and a reflection of my own psyche as to why I wasted all my time getting this achievement for a game that didn't reward me with any satisfaction other than maybe a flaccid idea of what this game was trying to achieve. Now, I know I said earlier that I didn't hate the game, but me being harsh on this game, yeah, you know, you can see that, you know, I think I am being a little bit too harsh on the game and all that kind of stuff, because I think there is value in some ways here and there with Devil May Cry 2 that I'm sure Capcom wanted to highlight in this entry. Well, fuck me, I should have been harsher. God, this game sucked ass, man, and it's weird how this game not only got greenlit with no delays after the royal screw-up that was its development cycle, but it also ended up not taking the franchise down either, because after this game came Devil May Cry 3, the de facto DMC game of all time. I mean, hindsight is big here, I gotta be honest here, and I am grateful that it didn't fuck up the franchise, but I'm just baffled by how much Capcom got away with this game in the end. I don't understand the vision they had here, and I wonder what kind of miracle this game pulled off to sell well enough to get that third game in the making. I can see potential with this game, don't get me wrong, and there are sparks in some parts here and there, but it's clear as day that Devil May Cry 2 ended up being a game of all time. You can honest to God skip this one because at the end of the day, the result ended up being a bare bones DMC game with boring hack and slash elements. And like I said in the beginning of the video, that's considered a cardinal sin in my book because you don't make hack and slashes boring. You make them fun, engaging, and filled with action, but this was something to be sure, and it makes sense why after this game, Dante jumped genres for a bit and went straight to Shin Megami Tensei 3, you know, to give people a good reason why he's the demon hunter. Thankfully, the next game won't be anything like what I experienced with DMC2 here, because the next time we jump back into the Devil May Cry franchise, is going to be with Devil May Cry 3. So yeah, what is considered the best of what Capcom has to offer, one of the best entries in terms of the Devil May Cry franchise, and one of the best of what the PS2 had in its lineup. Yeah, there's a lot of accolades alone in terms of its name that DMC3 has that I am very excited to talk more about in the near future. But for what it reasons exactly, you're going to want to subscribe and stick around for more. So thank you guys so much for watching this one. Thank you all for the support as always. Love you all to 120. Stay safe and sexy out there. Do good into the world. Have fun. Peace out and take care. Finally, I'm going to have some fun with this franchise.